What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DW Designs. I'm Derrick, and today we are asking a question of can we make dies for a bead roller? I think the answer may surprise you. You guys are not going to want to miss this because the truth is, I already know the end of this video. And spoiler alert, it works. You guys are not going to want to miss this. So stay tuned. Now, many of you have seen other videos out there about people making dies for like the press or even making something as simple as a dimple die for their sheet metal. Now, what a bead roller does, if those of you don't know what it basically is a embossing machine. You can emboss things into panels, you can create custom shapes, all sorts of kinds of things you can do with this amazing machine, which I'm very blessed for that. Let's talk about these a little bit. So these here are some 3D printed dies here that I have already printed. Actually 3D printed another set, which I'll show you a picture of here, that we came up with for a friend of mine to make custom fender wells for his truck, of his customers anyway, that he is making. So they came out amazing. This does work. We'll talk about it a little bit. I'll actually run these dies through the bead roller on a piece of sheet steel here so you guys can see what it does. But let's back up a little bit here. So I have a 1989 Ford F-250 turbo diesel. A couple years ago when I moved out here to Tennessee, somebody not going to mention their name, but a moving truck backed up on top of my truck and literally crushed my front driver's side left fender. Completely screwed it all up. And you can buy parts for it, but it gets expensive. Well, I have a shop here. I have all the equipment. I can either make my own fenders, which I'm not going to. I'm just going to take the fenders I have currently, hammer and dolly them out to where they are good to go. And then I'm going to take this bead roller right here and I'm going to run it down that seam that I show you guys in that video and recreate that seam without having to hammer and dolly it back in all the way. That becomes a real pain in the butt to try and hammer and dolly and planish hammer and English wheel all that back in. I went ahead and took a 3D scan of the truck side there where the bed is, where I know it's perfect. So that way I can recreate this shape. So that's what I did using 360. Sent it to my 3D printer and printed it. Let's talk about materials here a little bit, okay? This material here is not just any material for a 3D printer. And I'm not just using any ordinary 3D printer. I'm using what we call a resin printer, okay? This is also high strength engineering resin. Costs a bit more money, but is a lot stronger than your typical resins. However, this stuff is very, very, very strong. I can drop these on the ground, they're not gonna shatter. You guys could probably achieve this with an FFF printer, which is basically a filament printer that prints normally, but you will have to sand them heavily afterwards. Because if you have any imperfections in the dies, it will show up on your aluminum, or especially your aluminum. It will show up on steel, but not as much as it will on aluminum. So you have to make sure that they're nice and smooth before you go ahead and run it through on a piece of steel or a piece of aluminum, just to keep any imperfections out of the steel. For those of you who are potentially interested in maybe the dies that I made and would like to try them on your bead roller, I'm going to go ahead and put them up on my Thingiverse. So that way you guys can download it, print them, and try it if you guys don't know how to do CAD. And the cool part is, this opens up a whole new realm of customization. You can make any die pretty much to any shape you want. There are some limitations, however. You just have to learn those limitations for yourself. Because to be honest with you, I don't even know all the limitations of 3D printing dies. What gave me the idea was not only 3D printing dies like the other videos, but the fact that we have metal shaping machines that basically do the same thing. You make your own custom dies, and what I'm particularly talking about is what we call a pull max. And what that does is it's basically like a planishing hammer that hammers up and down on a piece of steel or aluminum, and you can stretch that out and make a shape. However though, except with a pull max, you'll make your die out of metal, cut to the shape that you want it, and you make the top die to fit the same exact thing, and then you run it through again and again and again, and it'll put that shape right into your steel. Problem is, to buy one of those machines, you're looking at quite a bit of money to spend on one of those, and space. I don't have all the space in the world right now. So, we improvise here. So, by having a bead roller here and having 3D printer, I can make pretty much any die that I want to. Another cool thing about this is what if you break a die? If you break a die that you bought recently, you can just 3D print one while you wait for the other one to come in and keep things moving. This literally took these two dies right here, at least on my printer. Now, each printer is going to vary, you know, and your skill sets are going to vary, but it only took about 45 minutes to print these two dies. That's not very long. This can be revolutionary in the fabrication field. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump in, and we're going to put these dies on this Jamie Jordan edition bead roller made by Mittler Brothers. And we're going to go ahead and grab a piece of sheet steel, and we're going to run a piece of sheet steel through it and see what happens. Alright guys, so what I have here is a piece of 18 gauge sheet steel, and I'm just going to bead roll this edge along here. On the other side there's a perfectly round over edge there, like a tank roll, if any of you guys are familiar with that. That's the other die that I made for a buddy of mine. But we're going to go ahead and try my dies here for my truck. I'm going to go ahead and run this guy through. A few times, so you guys can see what we're looking at here. I'm just going to crank it down a little bit here and do a first pass, just to get it started, and then we'll crank it down even more here in a second. Alright, now we're going to go nice and tight. Now I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to put a little bit of downward pressure out here on the outside. Alright, so it's kind of hard to see, but as you can see, we got a lift up and then a round over down here at the bottom. Okay, I know the camera doesn't do it justice, but that's what we're looking at. So let's take it out to the truck and see how it fits. Alright guys, so we're outside here at my house, and there's my shop there in the background, and this is my truck. So yeah, I got some scrap metal laying on the hood there, but that's some stuff I need to take in. So here's that fender again, and this is that edge I was telling you guys about that we're trying to mock up here. So this guy here should basically line right up with that right there, which it pretty much does. if we push it tight up against here where it hasn't been damaged, you can see that it fits really, really well along there. Now, there probably needs to be a little bit extra added to the top there, but then again, I just winged it there and went for it. So it's not perfect, but it'd be close enough to get the job done. However, one of the things that I may end up doing when I actually go to do this truck and fix it properly is what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make some adjustments to that die and then run it through again, make sure that it's perfect. However, though, to be honest, that'll probably get the job done. So let's head back into the shop. As you guys can see there, pretty much anything is possible with a 3D printer and a bead roller. Now, there are limitations, and I've learned that. Now I'm going to talk about that a little bit with the set of bead roller dies that I made for my buddy. Now, what I've learned is that there's space between when you open this up all the way, you have to take full open measurement and full closed measurement. Now what that's going to do is when you design it in CAD, you have to make sure that when you make the dies that they close all the way and they open all the way enough to give you room to get your piece of sheet steel in there. Now, if you're working with a thin, very, very thin gauge sheet metal, all you have to do is account for that. So if you need to make bigger dies, you can, which is basically what I did on the last set of dies that I made for my friend. But we also had some issues. By making a big round over die, the issue we had at play here was the bolt. The bolt had to go inside of that die. Now that being said, it created some issues. That part of the die actually started failing when he was using it. It started cracking. Now, to overcome that, you just need to make sure that you have enough material there to be able to do that. Doesn't matter if the bolt goes on the outside of the material or if it goes inside the material and there's a flange on the inside to stop the bolt and to hold it tight against the backstop. So, another thing that you guys need to make sure of if you guys have any kind of bead roller, it can be a Mittler Brothers, it can be a Eastwood, it can be a Woodward Fab. All these different companies make different bead rollers. You have to also take into account to whether or not you have any adjustability in the collet up here at the top. In my friend's instance, I did not know this. I thought he had the same addition as mine, so I thought he had a top collet and a bottom collet. Turns to find out, he only had a top collet. That created another issue. We ended up having to space out the bottom die with some washers to space it out so we can adjust the top collet for it to fit properly. So these are little things that you have to learn along the way to make sure that you get it right. I learned a lot as far as designing dies goes. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's a lot to take in and that it can seem very, very complicated at first. However, though, at the end of the day, it's really not. You can hire somebody to make you a custom set of dies in CAD if you guys do not know how to use CAD. You can use something like Fiverr, or you can go on Fusion 360 forums on Facebook and ask around, and there'll be someone happy enough to take on your project for you. Another thing is, guys, that I want you guys to know is you do not have to have a 3D scanner to do this. I just so happen to have a 3D scanner, and it makes my life much easier to be able to just 3D scan something and get it done and over with, rather than chasing my tail and having to test fit, try again, test fit, try again, or doing geometry, trying to figure out all the different angles and stuff like that. However, though, if you guys do not have a 3D scanner, don't worry, it is not that big of a deal. Let me know if you guys want to see any other bead rolling videos. Do you guys want me to try some outrageous bead rolling dies? Like maybe something like bob wire imprinted on the die and see if that comes out with anything cool? I've thought of it. I just haven't tried it. But not only that, not sure how this video is going to do. So, that being said, if you guys are interested in seeing maybe some outlandish things being made on the bead roller, or at least attempting to, let me know down in the comment section down below. Be happy to see your input and see what you guys think. Also, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I will do the best I can to get back to your questions. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm super stoked that this works, and hopefully you guys learned something today and can gain some advantages over your competitors when it comes to designing things. And also, guys, lastly but not least, if you guys learn anything or gain any value from this video, or just flat out like fabrication, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We're almost to 500 subscribers. Let's get that 500 subscribers. Quick interruption there. I started rambling on there. I just want to say thank you very much for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.